Frank here with Wrench Nation. Good to hang out with you guys in our ASCCA series right here in Southern California. It's always good to talk to technicians and shop owners, and I'm honored to have Tatsu. Am I getting the Tatsu?
Tatsu.
Well, I tried to practice the name so much, but Tatsu, you're with Tokyo Automotive right here in Southern California.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. And you also have your lead technician, Albert. Thanks for joining, Wrench Nation.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I start with Albert? How long you've been underhood as a mechanic?
Well, I started roughly in the late 80s. I'm going to say 86, 87, till now, currently roughly about 38 years. I skipped a couple of years, did some other stuff, but about 38 years, I could say.
And you picked up Mr. Albert, the talent, some time ago. We're going to get into the history of Tokyo Automotive, but Albert's been with you for some time.
How long has it been, Albert? 3?
Yeah, I hit 3 years this last...
That's a celebration.
It is definitely. The evolve, as I've grown as a shop owner, I've seen the quality of the people that are coming in and asking to be technicians at my shop just go up and up and up.
What do you attribute that to? We have a lot of shop owners listening. They may be flatlining with talent. They want to kick it up levels. I mean, was there something that you made a conscious effort, Tatsu, for attraction factor?
I think I really have like a good image in the community, and you know, pardon my French a little bit, but I act like my shit don't stink to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like,
Albert, you were attracted. You saw Tatsu and Tokyo Automotive. They were on billboards. They were on buses. They were all over. How are you, as a technician, at that time, if I can ask, 3 years ago, you were in the industry for so many years. What attracted you over to Tokyo? What was the selling point?
Well, for me, it was simple because of the type of vehicles that he worked on. So most independent garages, they run the whole gamut, all the vehicles.
That's tough, Tatsu. I mean, to specialize is a bit more controlled.
We got to a point where the shop was doing so well just on Japanese cars, and we're having headaches with the domestic and also some of the European cars that the customers were bringing to us, and we're like, you know what, this just makes sense at this point.
Yeah, and Albert, that attracted you. Were you burned out a little bit prior, like working on all platforms as a technician? Was that stressful?
Honestly, I came from mostly dealerships,
Gotcha.
Toyota and Lexus, and so I liked the fact that I was staying with the same brands, and it just made my transition from dealership to independent, working on the same brand, is just a no-brainer.
So I could see that as a connection with Tokyo Automotive. You go back with Dad, going way back. Dad started the company in, 78?
Yeah, so Dad started the shop when I was basically 2 years old. I grew up sweeping the floors, taking out the trash, and then when I was old enough, I was actually driving the cars in probably at an age of 13, 14 for the technicians. I obviously couldn't go on regular streets, but in the parking lot, I would bring it into the garage for them.
So you really started from the bottom that way. Dad instilled some great sort of work ethic.
He definitely.
Dad is still around today?
Yeah, Dad's still around today. To be honest with you, I was a bit of a punk young kid that thought he knew everything. Well, long story short, I think the 3 years that I spent in Japan teaching English and working on various automotive jobs, it really beat a work ethic into me, and a lot of young only sons that tried to take over their business, Tad's businesses, that do such a poor job of it. But if it weren't for that experience I had in Japan, I don't think it really would have grew me the way that
the Japanese, I just got to say this, it seems like there's a certain mindset of discipline and work ethic that has been tried and true, that hasn't changed from generations. You're saying that you grew up in Southern California, that trip to Japan really highlighted what the ethic of work is, and the grind and hustle.
Yeah, it taught me work, for sure.
Yeah. Are you able to instill that with your team in some ways?
Well, I would say that I more look for people who are already talented and have a work ethic, such as Albert here. Albert, believe it or not, he interviewed with me maybe 2.5, 3 years prior to me actually hiring him. But he would check in with me maybe every 3 months to half year and say, hey, has anything changed? What's going on? I remember.
So you were following up. You wanted that gig. You wanted that. You wanted to be a part of that shop.
Yeah, I don't know how it worked out, but I guess what really drove me out of the dealerships and into independent garages is the fact that warranty was becoming really, really ugly. They would pay barely enough to complete the job. Most of the time you'd lose until you mastered it, and then you barely made a profit of 0.2 above what it paid. And so my choices were stay in that kind of situation or get out and get into the real world where the independent garages are actually fixing cars and not so much paperwork and politics and etc. So my choices of independent garages were based on their Yelp results, their scores.
So you checked out reputation and you just didn't want to go somewhere easy. I think some technicians want to go in their neighborhood and they don't realize, oh my God, there's no culture at that shop. You researched it.
I want to work for somebody that can appreciate quality of work. It's what I'm all about. I hate using inferior components. We use the best that we can. Sometimes you have no choice, obviously, because the car is so old they don't make it anymore. You got to put on whatever you can get. But if you have a choice and we're using the best quality components, factory parts, factory replicas or higher quality, or even the same brand that the factory uses, just not in the same box, like Nip and Denso, for example.
NGK, in your world.
Exactly.
Tatsu, I gotta.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah. Sure.
What was your? I remember you had a little bit of a culture shock when you came to my shop. So let's talk quickly about that.
Well, for
everyone that spoke Spanish, I imagine. No, not that kind of culture shock.
For me, it was the corporate world versus the mom and pop shop. And as I've transferred, from one area to the other, the systems are different. For example, at your shop, we had to start sweeping the floors because it's a Japanese tradition to clean up the surrounding. In Japan, I guess I saw a little video where people were sweeping the sidewalks and the streets right before all the shops opened up and things like that. So we were doing some of that.
I got to stop you. Tatsu, that's a sense of pride.
It is. And
attention to detail.
Yeah. So like 15 minutes before opening shop, everybody sweeps.
I love it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we didn't do that at the dealership. We just got in, clocked in, did our process, and clocked out. Went to lunch, clocked in, came back, finished up the day, clocked out, and hey, get out! I'm not paying you overtime. Get out. So it's a big difference. So
Tatsu, I got to jump in, and I'm going to get hate on this, and it's okay, but can we get right to it? Do you think a lot of dealerships burn out technicians completely out of the industry because it was such a cold, stale check-in? Albert's talking about a process that doesn't seem to sort of create a positive movement for all, including the technician that may have been treated just as this lowly
I had
cog in the wheel.
Yeah, I know. So I had a technician that quit on me. He went out to bigger and better things, but he quit the dealership and came to me because they gave him a toolbox, and it was a Harbor Freight. No offense to Harbor Freight, but an inexpensive toolbox with very few tools in it, and paid him $2 over minimum wage and say, hey, that's your toolbox, so therefore we only have to pay you.
Right. For those not familiar, and I'm from Arizona, talk to us about real quick, just because California law is different minimum wage, obviously. If a shop provides the tools, then they can dummy down the hourly.
And call you an apprentice, and so therefore, and there's probably a lot of things like that, even at the level what Albert is, Master Tech, that kind of dummy down what he's trying to achieve. What we do at my shop and any quality shop is really allow for the technician to do their job, right, and showcase their qualities and their good traits. And I think For a long time, dealership has been getting perhaps one master technician to oversee 5, 6, maybe 7 apprentice technicians, and it kind of is an insult to us sometimes when we have that customer in front of us and they say, well, the dealer's this much, how come you can't do it as cheap? And I'm like, well, I'm hiring master technicians, so I can't always be the cheaper.
How about we just be straight and honest and tell folks we're paying a livable wage? Hello?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
and maybe that client isn't our client, if we call them even. If they've got to the point of client, they're just somebody that's looking for price only. I want to touch upon that because for him to be successful and having all the tools and the support and like bringing out the team to ASCCA's training, you got to be able to present value. Had that been a struggle? Were you that shop owner maybe years ago that had a hard time charging what you were worth based upon a P&L that gave you profit, that were able to pay people? Had you ever struggled with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, prior to meeting the ASCCA people, prior to meeting Cecil...
Big shout out, Cecil Buellert. Yeah.
The 20 groups, I was the guy that was trying to do it cheaper, and I couldn't understand why there were these other places that were doing it better. And I to be honest with you, I wasn't even aware of a fair wage at that point. So it's been a big evolution since 2014. So
yeah, and currently, let's tap on locally here. You are representing a chapter here of ASCCA. What part of the California area is that?
Chapter 48. We encompass most of Orange County, a small portion of southeastern LA County.
We'll have to get out to the shop. I come out, I visit Rocky often, and so would love to come out to the shop.
Rocky is a former president.
Yeah. A colorful character, Mr. Comedian. Albert, I got to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
There's some technicians listening, and they're in a position, and maybe they are working at a dealer, or maybe they're working for a piss poor operation, local neighborhood place. What would you tell them before they said, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to leave this industry? What advice would you give them? How could they handle that?
You have to kind of know what you're looking for. Ultimately, for me, if you're happy where you're working and you're okay with the salary that you're making, then maybe you don't need to leave. If you know that you could do better somewhere else.
What is better, Albert?
To be happier, have a better sense of
a family life.
A family life.
Yeah, I mean, because some technicians, they're grinding.
We got to talk about 440s at my shop. Yeah.
440s. Let's hear it. Is that a 4-day work week I'm hearing? No.
It is.
I'm actually looking at a model like that. Let's get back to that. But to finish your statement, diving into more of what is happy for a technician. Go ahead.
Well, happiness for a technician is a sense of accomplishment, that level that you want to be at, something that you could be proud of, the product that you've produced. A car comes in and you're very confident that you're fixing the car correctly, not just throwing parts at it, but you're at a level with all these classes, all this education that we're receiving, that you're doing a really good job and you're being fair. Because to me, every customer that comes in, I picture them as being my mom or my sister, my brother, and I don't want to take advantage of them, but I'm not going to work for free either, because I have to pay rent and I have to, car payments, etc. So what's fair is fair. So to me, to be happy is I'm very, very content with the repair that I did. I know I did it right.
It's a feel good.
It's a feel
Sometimes
good.
as owners, we take that for granted, and those that are really taking it for granted, well, I gave you the part. How come you couldn't fix it? Well, you gave me a part that I've got to cut this off. I got to shave this. And so the technician who truly wants to fix the vehicle well is left bamboozled. I mean, that's a big problem in the industry that we still need to work on with our peers.
I just took over a shop very recently, and where the customer was accustomed to bringing in their own parts, and I was like, all right, so here's the script that we're going to say now. Hey, ring, ring, ring. Customer calls up, and I'm like, well, how much for this? And I'm like, Well, sir, miss, ma'am, whichever you prefer, we're not the cheapest shop in town. I do employ ASC certified master technicians. I do put a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on the work that I do, and I just don't cut corners. And
but that's a hard swallow for the consumer that was trained.
Oh, it drives a wedge right into the consumer.
Are you able to convert that, or are you
Yeah.
just going to have to You are.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. And when I have that conversation, it drives away the people that don't want to bring their own parts. It drives a person that has to have it cheap. And I give them the possibility that it could be potentially cheaper because we are using quality aftermarket parts that are not boxed as dealership, but the same people who make it. And also say, hey, there's also the possibility that I might be cheaper because I'm not selling you stuff that you don't need. You know, the thing that consumers hate is that stinking list at X amount of mileage.
They feel overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
you have to do it because it's at a certain mileage.
I mean, I think folks should know about safety for sure. Major mechanical could cost more money later, but all the teeth cleaning and maintenance is definitely something that we sort of can plan out and sort of organize. I'm excited to hear this. 440, is that like, that's a 4-day? What are you playing with? What's that 440 about?
So basically, I approached the guys after hearing some of my shop owner friends out of my 20 group were doing this, and I said, hey, you know, going for 5 to 4, 6 to 5 was like a big culture leap, but 5 to 4, we've already trained our customer to know to have. They have to have an appointment, so why not go 440? We just made the leap. And I basically proposed it to the guys this way: you're trading in the maybe 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 Mondays off of the year for 50 Mondays off of the year.
Europe did it. Europe is basically grind hard during the week, and then that Friday is kind of like a...
Yeah, so...
Europe's been doing it for years.
So yeah, we take Mondays off at the Placentia shop. I'm working towards it at my new shop in Costa Mesa.
And it doesn't affect productivity, efficiency, those numbers. None of that changes.
It does it in the other way because instead of commuting in 5 days a week, instead of pulling in cars 5 days, in and out cars 5 days a week, we're now doing it 4 days a week. So
talk to us about consumer. You can sort of train a base to follow on board, and then have all those digital assets for pay and so on to execute. And I love that. Do you see a trend in that?
Well, I mean, our most recent technician, Paul, right? He showed up just because his wife was perusing online and said, honey, you're working here. Right?
So then the shortage isn't as real as it needs to be when you're
Not
actually...
for me. Yeah, not
Good
for
for
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have people coming to me giving me resumes probably weekly at this point.
And I think, Tatsu, I think we're in that culture where we're not chasing the mighty dollar. We're not chasing the grind and work. We want to enjoy the balance even more. And we're seeing that.
Albert, sorry to sound a little cheap, but I think it shields me against $3 to $4 an hour raise. Not to say that I'm shorting you that.
Well, that's a logic. I mean, you're giving, and studies have shown it's not always about the money. It's like the time. Are you going to give me 6 times a year? Let's go back to just traditional 5-day week. Give me that 3-day weekend so I can do these community things that I'm doing. This is what's important to me, and it's not necessarily associated with the high and mighty dollar.
Right. You know, my wife is a nurse, and I'm not going to say where she works or whatever, but she's getting paid. She's making twice what I'm making, you know, bringing home twice what I'm making. And the reality is she hates her job. And she's about to retire, and she just made a decision that she wants to get out soon. So she's going to come up with some money, and we're going to pay off an early retirement. And so money is not necessarily the happy part. She's getting out. She's making what I make, twice what I'm making, and she wants to get out, you know?
Yeah. I think maybe, I don't know. I'm not a statistician, but I think COVID brought an element, Tatsu, after where we were home. We had to deal with that. I mean, we were in the shops. My point is, the average person had to connect and get to know their families and really look at what was important, because that was a scary time for everybody.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going on. I love the idea of what you're doing. I definitely want to come by the shop. It's something that my wife and I both were looking at. How do we pull this 4-day off? It's something so it's good to talk to you about that. You've kind of inspired kicking it in gear. Albert Ramirez,
Yes.
right on, man. Good to meet you. Thanks for stopping by Wrench Nation.
Thank you.
Tatsu, thank you so much. Keep doing great things. We'll have you back on the show, and definitely come out and visit your shop.
Thank you.
Frank Wrench Nation, catch the ASCCA series. We'll catch you next time.